Raw was better than usual. Everybody got all excited. It's so exciting. But they threw some stuff out there for the pop, and I like it. They just did it for the pops. I ain't mad at you. They tried to make John Cena's final night very exciting. They tried to make it full of moments, and they did all of that. They did a really good job here. Ironically, there was a clip online of Zack Ryder winning the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. And everybody was like, man, they don't do stuff like that anymore. You know? Wouldn't that be fun if they were to do something like that? And it's almost like Triple H is chronically online. Saw that and decided to go with it. But I ain't mad at you because it serves the story. It's fine. And it's not going to last long, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Right now, though, I'm just going to give you the greatest hits of what happened on Raw. John Cena agreed to defend the Intercontinental Championship against Dominic Mysterio at Survivor Series because Dominic Mysterio wanted a rematch. And then they had a 6-man tag where Dominic and JD McDonough and Finn Balor got to wrestle in John Cena's final ever Monday Night Raw match as John Cena teamed with Rey Mysterio and Sheamus. Now, a part of me was definitely gritting my teeth at the idea of JD McDonough being in John Cena's final Monday Night Raw match. My teeth was almost grind down to the bone. I almost had teeth like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. I can't believe this. Triple H he's really pushing his guys, man. He getting his guys in there one way or the other. But it was a fine match, very popcorny. The baby faces basically steamrolled them. They did the 10 beats of the Byron, all three of them. They did a 3-man 5-knuckle shuffle, a double 619, a brogue kick, and an AA, and they just walked out of that joint happy. Everybody was happy. It was great. You know, it did what it needed to do. And apparently, John Cena is going to drop that Intercontinental Championship back to Dominic Mysterio in San Diego. And that's actually pretty smart. I thought maybe he dropped the belt in his final match. But him giving the belt back to Dominic in San Diego, giving Dominic the win back, because Cena got to beat him in Boston, so he gets to go over in San Diego. That's a great spot for him. So, good. And I can't complain about any of this outside of JD McDonough finding his way into John Cena's final match. It's almost like Triple H was trying to rage bait me with that. I felt it. I felt like he was poking the bear with that one. Oh yeah, we're gonna slip this big head idiot in there. Come on, man. Get real. Under no circumstances should JD McDonough be in the ring with John Cena. Also, it was very nice that since Sheamus nor Rey Mysterio could be John Cena's final opponent, he made them his partners. I like that. That was actually quite smart. So, all of that was fine. The men's War Games team is complete. So, in the big close of the show, it is Division. They were going to be accompanied with Brock Lesnar. And CM Punk's team is going to be accompanied with Roman Reigns. So, the Usos are going to see Roman before Christmas. What was the point of him saying that? And he's going to be there before. Also, he's wearing the LeBron James one sleeve thing. He always comes back and does something a little bit different. I appreciate that, but he's got people all juiced up. You know, Brock Lesnar came in there and murdered CM Punk and Cody. That was great. The brawl was kind of generic because, of course, there was a brawl. It was funny that CM Punk went after Logan Paul with the kendo stick and he was trying to kill him. That was fun. So they put in all the big stars in the War Games match. Whether it kind of forcing it to make sense because Brock is allied with Paul and Roman, of course, is going to ally with the Usos. In addition to allied against Paul, in addition to his feud with Division and his issues with Bronson Reed, this is all okay, you know. These guys, they pop up whenever they need them. You don't really need Brock for this show, but Brock Lesnar in a War Games ring could be tremendous. We know who the last two people coming in are. Okay, we know Brock and Roman are coming in last. They're probably going to work 8 or 9 minutes, and then the match is going to be over. So, but this is going to be a fun star-filled match. We can't complain too much about it. I don't expect a bed of nails or glass or anything like that. But people are going to get thrown off stuff. I expect somebody to get thrown off. I expect Brock to try to put somebody through the cage or something like that. It's going to be something fun that's going to happen. Because, well, not that they have to live up to Blood and Guts, and I don't like comparing the two because WWE is clearly a PG product, despite the fact that for some reason this PG product is shilling alcoholic beverages. Has anybody ever asked that question? If you're a PG product, why do you have so many alcoholic sponsors? Anyway, these guys are stars. They're going to be in a clash that everybody wants to see. That's going to be the draw for this. Not necessarily the violence, because the violence is going to be toned down quite a bit. But at the same time, there will be some big bumps. And I'm looking forward to that. But I can say one of the sadder things is that Brian Breaker was really just coming into his own as a voice, as a character. And then he was usurped by Logan Paul. And then was usurped by Drew McIntyre and now Brock Lesnar. And, so now he's not the killer on the team anymore. Now, yeah, he's one of the killers, but, Brock is like, a bear. And, these guys are like pit bulls, It's a completely different genus of creature. And they're going to give Braun Breaker an opportunity, no doubt, to showcase what he can do. I just wonder if who is going to be the victim of Braun Breaker's big breakout moment. And it's probably going to be like Jimmy Uso or something. Somebody that's completely and totally somebody you can just write off. It's probably going to be like Jimmy Uso. But I want it more for Braun Breaker, but he gets to rub shoulders with Brock and Roman and Punk, so that's really good. And I can't complain about this other than I wish it was stables feuding, and it's coming across like it's Division versus the Bloodline, but there's not really a Bloodline right now. So it is what it is, but I can't complain about that. The women's War Games match, they're actually going to throw some stars at this one too. Maxine Dupree defeated Becky Lynch with a crossbody from the top rope. Holy hell. To win the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Becky Lynch was distracted by AJ Lee. This becomes important later as Rhea Ripley approached AJ Lee, no doubt to recruit her for the War Games match. Now, Maxine Dupree winning the Intercontinental Championship, the match was what it was. It was okay. Maxine Dupree has been working very, very, very hard. Extremely hard. I like the surprise of her winning. I like that Becky Lynch worked to put her over. I like that. That about it I enjoyed. When you look at the amount of people, however, that have been skipped over in order to give this belt to Maxine Dupree, and how there are all kinds of people who have never won championships while Maxine Dupree has. That's an odd thing. Okay, that's very odd. But again, she works very hard. She was an underdog babyface. She got put over in a big surprise. I don't expect her to be champion very long. This might be just a setup for Roxanne Perez, which is what I think it is. I think it's a setup for either Roxanne Perez or Raquel Rodriguez or somebody like that to take the belt off her pretty quickly. Or they might call somebody up from NXT to take the belt. But I don't think she'll be champion a month. I just don't see it happening. This feels like it's a transitional thing. Like you're supposed to get this, have this moment in the world's most famous arena. It's excellent, but you're just there until we find the right heel to take it off of you. You're not there because we're pushing Maxine Dupree. And I say that because they haven't done anything else with her. she hasn't been in a feud with anybody else where she can show what she can do. So this tells me that this was all basically just storyline stuff. And it's all just a setup for another angle. But if they decide to give her a 2-3 month run with the title, that ought to be interesting, because I have no idea, outside of the people that I just mentioned, who she would wrestle. You know, Bayley, Lyra Valkyria, Asuka, Kairi, I guess. But they're all doing tag team stuff. So maybe not. So this gotta be transitional, right? Becky Lynch is very unselfish. Give her kudos for losing to this girl who definitely doesn't deserve the win, but she works very hard. You know, in terms of stature in the company, Maxine Dupree is lucky to still be there. All right. But again, she works very hard. Now, one thing that I did not like here, that I think that they probably should have done, is they should have pulled one of those training montages where she's in the dungeon with Natalya or something like that, and they show the struggle of her, like running and grappling and doing all this stuff to prepare. That's the old school WWF stuff that I would have loved to see. And I think I probably would be more in the bag for Maxine Dupree if we just saw that. If we just saw her like chasing chickens around like the new Hart House or something like that, that would have been fun. But we didn't. We just heard a lot about it. It was a lot of tell, don't show. And so I'm kind of like, she's okay. She's a good baby face. And she worked very hard to get here. And compared to where she was a year or two ago, she's the shits, you know. She was the shits 2 years ago. But she's okay now. She's like a couple of shades above Lana, what Lana was. You know, she's like in the old Divas territory in terms of being a decent to good wrestler. But she's got a lot of physical charisma. And I like Maxine Dupree. So, AJ Lee cost Becky Lynch the match. Alexa Bliss got in the ring. She got whatted because she wanted to talk about Charlotte. And instead, Charlotte was her best friend, and Charlotte abandoned her because she has issues with Rhea Ripley. And that's never happened before. That why now of all times to have this issue? And basically, she got jumped by Asuka and her team. And Rhea Ripley came out there to help. It was a minor help. And then there was a brawl, and Charlotte came out there with the kendo stick to fight off Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Later on, Rhea Ripley did approach AJ Lee to join the team. So they're going to obviously have AJ Lee join Rhea Ripley's team. And then Asuka's going to have Becky Lynch join her team. And that's going to make the women's War Games match much bigger. But it seems like they're dragging ass with this AJ Lee Becky Lynch singles match, which is what I thought they were going to go for as an undercard match at Survivor Series. And it seemed like it would have made more sense to do that. To have the women's War Games match, but then in between you'd have Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee in a really big singles match for the Intercontinental Championship. I thought that's what they would do. They actually swerved me by giving the belt to Maxine, so I appreciate that. But now they're just going to throw AJ Lee in the War Games match. They're just going to throw Becky in the War Games match, and now it feels like even more of a hodgepodge of people for this women's War Games thing, and not a straight-up storyline, except for now it's my enemy is on that other team, so now I have to join your team. It's okay. It's all right. I mean, I'm trying not to complain too much about this War Games thing. I did appreciate that Bayley was asked by Asuka to join her team, and Bayley said no because of how terrible the Kabuki Warriors treated her when Damage Control fell apart. Which, true. I mean, they treated her like absolute shit. They beat her up. They beat her up quite a bit. One thing I will say, though, is if Charlotte has decided to join the team again, to have that silly 1 week spat just doesn't make any sense. We need to get to the bottom of what her problem with Rhea Ripley was and how they're going to solve it and how they're going to move past it. Because it seems to me like, okay, they're going to do a thing where Charlotte came out there with the kendo stick and she helped. But then she's probably going to say, I'm here for Alexa. I'm not here for the rest of you. Even though it's not going to matter much in the end. I mean, as long as you're helping us, who cares why you're there? But, all right, we seeing the friendship between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte. They went from we're not friends to now you're my best friend. Oh, Lord. Friendship and betrayal. Friendship and betrayal. You know how this goes. Speaking of friendship and betrayal, Nikki Bella attacked Stephanie Vaquer from behind again and then demanded a championship match, saying that she didn't come back to be anybody's sidekick. She came back to take back her division. So that's going to be the women's singles match at Survivor Series. Has already been announced. Boy, oh boy. I think we were better off with my idea. You were probably better off putting Nikki Bella and Stephanie Vaquer in the War Games match and letting Becky Lynch and AJ Lee wrestle on the undercard. Poor Stephanie. That's all I can say. Becky Lynch couldn't get anything out of Nikki Bella. Like, Roxanne Perez couldn't get anything out of Nikki Bella. Stephanie Vaquer will have to be fucking Merlin to fix what they about to do to her. You know, she's got these ram's horns, so whatever satanic magic she knows, whatever chaos Scarlet Witch magic she knows, she's going to need it. Because she's going to be in deep shit trying to make the most out of a match with Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella she's not good. That's always been her problem, is she's just consistently not good. Alright, let's move over to the last time is now. Tournament ideas. Dolph Ziggler returned to have Solo Sikoa's best match probably ever. Really good job here. The crowd loved Dolph Ziggler. Was 100% in the pot for him. I knew he wasn't going to win. I just wanted to make me feel like he was going to win. And they did it just a little bit when he hit the zigzag. Of course, Solo Sikoa kicked out of that thing, and I knew it was over at that point. But Samoa Spike, that was it. Dolph did a great job here. Really sold well for Solo. Took some really incredible bumps. Took a chest bump with the turnbuckle. And it worked out fine, you know. I figured he wasn't going to win, and he didn't win. And now it was announced that the Zack Ryder thing was a one-off, but they signed some kind of merchandise contract so that he can continue going on the indies, where they can continue selling merchandise. And the same thing is probably going to happen here. Dolph's still working at TNA with his brother. He's no doubt still going to be doing the indies. Yes, I did see some people make the assumption that there's a WWE's being petty towards Juggalo Championship Wrestling, considering I believe Matt Cardona is the champion and Dolph Ziggler was one of the number one contenders. I don't think WWE gives a shit. I don't think anybody gives a shit. These guys also were most notably in TNA very recently. I think it's more of a TNA connection than a Juggalo Championship Wrestling connection, which is hilarious because both of those guys have been wrestling on JCW forever and nobody gave a shit until Vince Russo started doing it, right? The first time I started watching Juggalo Championship Wrestling, Dolph Ziggler was on it, you know? This was when earlier this year, long before Vince Russo got involved, he was part of their crossover story with Game Changer Wrestling, if I remember correctly. But he's been on that show for a while, you know, and nobody gave a shit. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're just doing this to screw over Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Probably not, dog. It might have a lot to do with Dolph Ziggler's 20 years in WWE and the fact that the crowd loved him and still does, apparently, you know. But I don't think he wants to work there full time. He said that before. He doesn't really want to be under like a long-term contract, but Dolph Ziggler's going to go down as one of the best in the world, man. He's extremely good, and he's still in his 40s. Speaking of extremely good, Javon Evans and Gunther, they really did a great job here. I really like that they gave Gunther his theme back, his Imperium thing. I think this fits the character a whole hell of a lot better than the Def Rebel version with the vocalizing and all that stuff in it. The reason is it adds an element of ambiance to the character. I was actually quite surprised also that Gunther got such a reaction in New York City. I didn't think they'd give a fuck about him, but apparently they do. There was a lot of chants for him. There was Walter chants, not really Gunther chants, but there was like Walter chants, and people liked him. So he's not high up on my list. I get very aggy when we talk. Like I really respect his in-ring prowess, but I would trade Walter Gunther for Powerhouse Hobbs any day of the week when it comes to AEW and WWE trading. I definitely trade the two of them. That's me though. I would trade them for like the Hurt Business or something like that. They can take him. Go ahead, do whatever you want. But, I'm not so sure the guy is a star. That's just me. He might be a good pro wrestler. I'm not so sure he's a star. Javon Evans, he's working on it. I mean, he did a really good job here from fighting underneath, showing off a lot of his agility. He did a really good job also of Gunther stopping a lot of his offense, especially some of his flashier, more nonsensical offense, like his little ricochet off the rope stain that Gunther blocked with a boot to the face. I appreciated that because sometimes Javon Evans' offense is dumb. So Samoa Joe that shit. Like you're going to do this dumb spot. I'm either going to move, I'm going to break it up or something. I appreciate that. It ought to be interesting how this tournament goes down now, so all the surprises are out. Now, not only have they been revealed, but they're also eliminated from the tournament. So now it's just regular roster dudes left. And yes, it probably would have been better to have, this underdog story of a guy who got fired from WWE, fighting and scratching his way back into prominence and quite possibly being, a guy that gets to wrestle John Cena in his final match. And it's interesting because both Cardona and Namath had long histories with John Cena. Cardona as Zack Ryder obviously had more of a partnership with John Cena, as the Zack Ryder character was, friends with John Cena, while Namath has been on both sides of it. The Dolph Ziggler character was obviously a heel during their short feud over the Money in the Bank with him and John Cena. But they were also partners in like 2016. I think they were on the same side on Survivor Series and stuff like that. So they had so much history, and I wish those two guys would have gotten an opportunity to do something with John. Like that would have been great if they would have been like, if you'd have made it a 10-man tag, like a Survivor Series match maybe, and these guys got to be John Cena's partners. That would have been great. Him calling some old friends in to help him out. That'd have been great. A wonderful little nod there. But this was fine in terms of Dolph Ziggler's appearance. And Javon Evans, everybody knew he wasn't going to win. It was all about the showcase. So, and I think he did a good job. I didn't like they didn't have an entrance for him. I wasn't a fan of that. Other than that, though, I did like Javon Evans' performance here. I think they did a good job. All right. I think I hit all the major points of Monday Night Raw in this summary of the show. I don't know if I even call it a review. It's more of a summary. Yes, I did see that Shane McMahon was on screen, but he didn't acknowledge him, which I think is very offensive, considering all Shane McMahon did to help that company and who he actually is. For him to be in the crowd to see John Cena's final night in Madison Square Garden and to get ignored when you had Lil Yachty on TV and various comedians. But when Shane McMahon's there, we don't talk about Shane. We don't mention Shane McMahon being there. Get fucked, TKO. This is worse than whatever they did to West Side Gun. Shane McMahon, of course, and his family are synonymous with this company. Shane didn't do anything to some intern or whatever. Why can't you acknowledge him that he's there? He's there with his son too. That was very frustrating to me. It wasn't bad enough that it would make me sour on the show, but it does remind me, that this version of WWE is not normal, and this version of WWE is kind of sick. Again, you got Shane McMahon, who bled buckets for this company, whose daddy used to own the fucking place, and he doesn't get acknowledged. But we got Little Yachty on TV. Little Yachty. The nigga who I only know that he ghost wrote for Drake. That's it. But we get him front and center. Get out of here, man. TKO is full of it. I was trying not to curse, but it's already happened. So hopefully they ran into each other backstage. And Vince will definitely be there in Washington, D.C. And he definitely will not be acknowledged. But he will be there. And no doubt Shane will be there too. And it's going to be a whole big thing. And TKO doesn't have any good reason. I mean, Vince is one thing, obviously. But there's no good reason to not acknowledge Shane McMahon. Just not a good reason at all. And that's Triple H's brother-in-law. How do you let them treat your brother-in-law like that? Well, clearly, if he thinks that he's better than you at your job, which he probably does and probably is, then, yeah, I probably wouldn't care either. I just couldn't imagine my nephew and my brother-in-law being there and we just ignore them. Just pretending they're not there. Just not there at all. It's bullshit. Overall, though, I think that the old heads did a good job here with this episode of Raw. They had good matches. They had really good moments. It was emotional because it was John Cena's farewell. The only problem I don't like is I think them putting John Cena on there early. Look, it's to hook people to watch Netflix. That's why they're doing it. And they're hoping that guys like Roman Reigns and Cody and CM Punk can keep people at the end. But I think the final shot of this show should have been John Cena. And it should have been a video package or video packages showing the history of John Cena on Monday Night Raw. All his best moments, all his best matches, winning titles, all this sort of stuff to really solidify that he's going to be not on Raw anymore. And again, that's part of the drama that I think is missing in wrestling sometimes. Is Vince would do stuff like that. If a guy was retiring, he would show clips, of his illustrious career. And they may save that for Saturday Night's Main Event, where they might pepper that show full of video packages for John Cena. But this would have been a perfect time to have a couple of video packages for John Cena's run on Monday Night Raw, during the various eras and his various opponents or whatever. And maybe even guys having backstage messages like, see you around, John, or whatever. To just do a JD McDonough 6-man tag. Oof. Okay, look, I'm nitpicking at that point. I know I am. They started with John Cena. They wanted to keep it running. So I think the first 40 minutes of the show, first 20 minutes of the show, whatever, was John Cena. Fine. The rest of the show, I think, did a good job of keeping the ebb and flow pretty well. And they finished strong with Roman and Brock and Punk and all those guys. So there's not much to complain about. Just would have reorganized some things and probably took some time to tell more stories. But other than that, I think they did a really decent job. And I want to give them credit for taking risks. The Maxine Dupree title switch is a risk. Whoever decided to do that, smart person. Because this show needed something like that. And I appreciate it. I always appreciate when creatives want to take risks on pushes. And Maxine Dupree, boy, that is a risk. I would like to see her have a decent performance against literally anybody else, but I guess we're going to get that chance. All right, y'all. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Be sure to hit the like button. That's not enough people hitting the like button. Not enough people sharing the content. I'll talk to you guys later. Be blessed.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.